Oh, I was there, hated the day. The day was a miserable day. I mean, it was a worst royal engagement I ever did, a royal wedding I ever did. And I travelled the world with him and I did really enjoy working with him. But, you know, now I really don't care if I ever see him again because the way he's behaved towards the king and our queen and his brother and his sister-in-law is appalling.
I've been photographing the same family for 45 years. I followed their lives across 4 generations. They've invited me into their homes. And I've travelled to more than 120 countries with them.
If people want to believe Meghan Markle, that's entirely their right. I don't believe almost anything that comes out of her mouth.
It's lie upon lie upon lie.
These two are insane narcissists.
She's a narcissist.
That gives you some idea of the scale of the Netflix narcissist.
She is a malignant narcissist. She's also a sociopath.
I'm gagging on the narcissism.
Meghan Markle is a sociopath.
Narcissistic isn't a big enough word.
The world can now see Harry and Meghan for what I've known they are for some time. Narcissistic egotists.
She has been called a narcissist many times.
She is a narcissist of the highest order. Someone that everyone thinks is a sociopathic narcissist.
Okay, let's spill this tea because the fairy tale version we've all been spoon-fed? Honey, it's not the full picture. Sure, you remember the carriages, the music, the glittering guest list that made the whole world sigh like it was a storybook come to life? But what if I told you that behind those golden gates, the royal wedding everyone was obsessed with was nothing but a disaster? At 85 years old, Arthur Edwards, the man who's seen it all, every major royal moment from Princess Diana to Kate Middleton, finally opened up, and baby, he did not hold back. He straight up called Harry and Meghan's big day the worst royal engagement he ever covered. And trust me, when a man who's been holding the royal camera for decades says that, you better believe the fairy tale flips upside down.
My life, you know, and then Oprah Winfrey had met them once. She was a guest. The Clooneys, the guests. I mean, never met them before, but they were the guests. And, you know, I thought to myself, it's all showbiz. I was coming away from a polo match, he was rushing off. As he turned round, I saw this huge bald spot in his head there. So the next day, picture's a splash picture, and the headline was, "Oops, Charles, there's a patch in your thumb."
Forget about romance. Forget about unity. According to Edwards, this wasn't a wedding, darling. It was a circus. A flashy, over-the-top, carefully staged Hollywood show where real tradition was shoved out the window, loyal family members were brushed aside, and even the press, yes, the very people who made that wedding sparkle worldwide, were punished. Can you imagine? A royal event turned into a petty grudge match. And once you hear how chaotic and miserable things actually were, trust me, you'll never look at that perfect TV broadcast the same way again.
So he was angry, and I felt we were punished for that. In fact, I never got one picture in the paper published from that day. She delivered it like an actress delivered it, and Oprah responded going, wow.
On television, everything looked dreamy and flawless. But Arthur Edwards, the man with the lens, swore he hated every second of it. Behind those polished camera angles, Windsor Castle turned into what he described as an oven. Guests, decked out in their heavy gowns and suits, sat trapped under that brutal sun. People weren't glowing, darling, they were melting. Exhaustion was painted all over their faces as they struggled to keep composure while quietly dying of heat.
Oh, I was there, hated the day. The day was a miserable day. I mean, it was a worst royal engagement I ever did, a royal wedding I ever did.
How has your relationship with King Charles changed over your career? Because it started so long ago.
Well, long ago, yeah, it wasn't too great in the early days. In fact, I remember when I photographed his bald spot, he pulled me up 3 days later and he said, are you the man that photographed my bald spot? I said, yes, sir. I said, has it been bothering you? He said, no. He said, but how many people saw it? I said, well, about 7 million people, sir. He said, that's the reason why everybody, wherever I go, people are photographing the back of my head.
And here comes the jaw dropper. People who had given their entire lives to the monarchy, senior royals, military veterans, loyal family members, were shoved all the way into the back rows like they didn't matter. Meanwhile, who gets the front seats? Hollywood A-listers who barely even knew Harry or Meghan. That's right, George and Amal Clooney, Oprah, and other glitzy names were sitting pretty in prime spots, while decades of duty got ignored. Edwards said it didn't feel like a wedding steeped in tradition at all. Nope. To him, it felt like a red carpet premiere dressed up in royal packaging.
When I think I've done some really lovely royal weddings. I did both King Charles's weddings. I did William's wedding. I did Andrew's wedding. I did Sophie and Edward. You know, I mean, they were lovely occasions. But that today, I couldn't get out of Windsor quick enough. I promise you that.
The worst royal wedding to cover.
Yeah. Harry was determined to keep the newspapers away from it as much as possible. Everything was done on long lenses. I mean, Akaito had an 800mm lens photographing the guests arriving.
And if you think the press, who helped broadcast this spectacle to the entire planet, were treated with respect, think again. Arthur Edwards revealed that Harry deliberately refused to look at the cameras. He turned his head away at crucial moments, making it nearly impossible to get a decent shot. Imagine being a photographer at the royal wedding of the decade and walking away with nothing. That's exactly what happened. Edwards admitted it was the first royal wedding where not a single one of his photos made it to print.
I felt so. I felt, it wasn't just me, it was the whole of the British press. You know, they were in many ways badly treated. I think it was, Harry was angry with us really because some of the things that been said about Meghan, and quite rightly, some of the things that were said about Meghan during the engagement were pretty harsh.
Can you tell us about the time you photographed Diana coming out of a swimming pool in Alice Springs?
Oh my God, you know about that, dear. That was where we arrived there in '83, and there had been a flood there, and the Todd River was flooded, so they couldn't go to where they were staying. They had to stay at this motel. And we were a motel about half a mile down the road. I thought, I'll go up and have a look. Went up there, and Diana is getting out the swimming pool, water dripping off her, looking absolutely gorgeous, and I'm taking loads of pictures. And then suddenly I look down and there's no film in the camera.
Oh, no.
He said the day felt less like a celebration and more like punishment. Photographers were scrambling, practically begging for just one usable shot, while Harry seemed determined to block them at every turn. Instead of the joyful, iconic portraits we're used to, those timeless moments of smiles and happiness, the whole day turned into a cat-and-mouse chase. The press wasn't treated as partners in sharing history, they were treated like intruders. Edwards said it straight. What should have been a milestone for the monarchy ended up a total disaster.
I mean, obviously when William was born and Harry was born and George and Charlotte and Louis, we got great pictures outside the hospital. I remember, and William and Catherine especially, they made such an effort to show the whole world their new baby. I have to say though, you know, that first year of Meghan, working with her on the road, you know, we went all over the country. She was incredible. I mean, I thought she was a great asset to the family.
What is the magic of the royal family? Why are we so interested? Why do we want to see the images?
Do you know, I keep asking myself that, and you know, there's been stories going over here in Britain that people are not interested in the coronation, and I kind of deny that. I remember they said that about the Queen's Golden Jubilee and Diamond Jubilee, and yet the crowds turned out in their thousands, and I think they will for King Charles and Queen Camilla on the day. I think there's a massive interest in this family.
And then, oh honey, let's talk about Meghan. According to Edwards, the entire day wasn't about family or love, it was about branding. He said it felt less like two families joining together and more like Meghan's grand Hollywood debut. The sermon, performed with dramatic flair. The reactions, staged for the cameras. Every tiny detail seemed crafted not for tradition, but for maximum media impact. Instead of a royal fairy tale, it was giving Hollywood premiere.
And then when the baby was born, when Archie was born, that was another, in my view, a disaster, because I knew we was not going to get a picture of it. Everybody was hoping we would get pictures. And it's one of the saddest things of all, Matt, of course, is that the children don't get to see their grandfather. That's really so awful because they're not getting to meet their cousins and to know their cousins. Such a shame for them.
And get this, some guests didn't even get their invitations because of genuine closeness. Nope. Meghan herself admitted that she got invited to George and Amal Clooney's home on TV, and suddenly, bam, they're sitting front row. On screen, it looked perfect. Flags waving, choirs singing, celebrities shining. But inside Windsor, darling, it was suffocating. Guests were fanning themselves desperately, makeup melting, tempers flaring. Edwards compared it to every royal wedding he'd ever covered and swore nothing came close to the misery of that day.
I knew they'd be seething. I knew the Queen would be seething. I knew that the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles would be seething. It would be so unfair. The photographers they engaged for the job was 5 feet away. You know, it was just hopeless. And then the carriage shot, when they went past me in the carriage, they looked the other way. So for me, it was a disaster.
The day goes down at our bedroom to the photographer. We've been following me around for 40 years.
Now, here's where Arthur really spilled it. He said the problem wasn't the weather, oh no. Royal weddings have survived storms, rain, wind, even blazing sunshine before. What made this one stand out as a disaster was the attitude. Normally, the comfort of the guests mattered. Care was taken to make sure tradition was upheld with dignity. But this time, Edwards swore all anyone cared about was how it looked on global TV. Smiles plastered for the cameras, choirs booming, every angle designed for worldwide broadcast. But behind the scenes, guests were drained, frustrated, and honestly just fed up. He said it himself. The wedding wasn't for the family, it wasn't for the guests. It was a spectacle for the audience at home.
Well, wonderful. Wouldn't be the same without you, Elizabeth. You're so kind, sir. I'm so glad you're making progress. Thank you, sir.
There's nothing I like about her. She is a malignant narcissist who cannot get enough of herself while she simultaneously plays the victim. My castle's too small. Yeah. The queen is mean to me. They won't let me call myself Her Royal Highness anymore, but I'm going to put it all over my stationery and on the gifts that I give to my friends, while she never stops whining.
I know. Shocking. She's never once played a victim, but she is going to cry, and you will like her, and you will see her as a victim, no matter how many dollars it takes, that she is victimized by being a princess.
It sucks. Are you joking? It's bad. It's terrible. It's stupid. They're ridiculous.
And if you want proof, just look at the seating chart. Edwards said the seating told the whole story. Distinguished royals, people who had literally given their lives to the crown, veterans who had sacrificed everything, they were all shoved to the sidelines like extras. Meanwhile, Hollywood stars with barely any ties to Harry or Meghan strutted into the best seats in the house. Edwards joked that he practically needed a GPS to find his seat. It was that bad. Imagine the official royal photographer, the man documenting history, having to hunt for a place to sit. He even said Windsor Castle didn't feel like Windsor Castle anymore. Instead, it felt like a red carpet event disguised as a wedding.
The guest list, beyond the lone family member she inviting a handful of people who you do not know, but certainly not to this extent. There were a huge amount of guests who she had never met. Some people didn't even come. Like, for example, Reese Witherspoon said, "Why would I go? I don't even know them."
Turns out Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will still get paid millions of dollars for doing absolutely nothing. And that's just by Netflix.
Meghan Markle has finally revealed why she and Prince Harry call each other M and H.
And he'll say M and you'll say H and your friends say M and it just is a thing.
It's a thing.
And do you both love it?
Yes, and I like nicknames a lot.
What could it be? A mystery for the ages.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will still get paid millions of dollars for doing absolutely nothing.
If you came up with the picture of an annoying, insufferable white woman, it would be Meghan Markle, even though she's not one.
How great was Imelda Staunton in The Crown? Wasn't she amazing? Her portrayal of the Queen was so good, Prince Harry called her and asked her for money.
I watched the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary. Now, I'll be honest with you, before I watched it, I was not a fan of theirs. But now I've actually heard their side of the story, I f***ing hate them.
In California, we're just a regular couple living close to Oprah and far from the paparazzi. But not too far.
What do you mean by that?
You have generously offered to keep the wax figures of Harry and Meghan safe.
Yeah, that's correct. And if I may, I would just like to say that I'm definitely not using the wax figures for sex.
Oh, Pads, you cracked me up. Not that sort of crack, obviously.
Just a great series about a rich, white, dysfunctional family, all scheming. Oh, no, that's The Crown. That's The Crown. I'm sorry.
And oh, the whispers that floated around that day. People couldn't believe it. Some laughed it off, others were quietly furious. Edwards himself was disgusted at how minimal everything felt. A royal wedding, one of the grandest traditions of the monarchy, looked like it had been cut down to glossy magazine aesthetics. Food portions so small it was almost pathetic. Instead of abundance and tradition, it felt like style over substance. In his words, it was the perfect symbol of the whole day. The monarchy, usually rooted in heritage and meaning, was reduced to an Instagram moment. A wedding that should have been about uniting people. It left guests unimpressed, hungry, and shaking their heads.
What the f*** is she talking about? She didn't know. It's the royal family. They're the original racists.
To expose just how absurd her claim of ignorance was, Rock used a simple and brutal analogy that everyone could instantly understand.
That's like marrying into the Budweiser family and going, they drink a lot. This is invested in slavery like it was Shark Tank.
President Trump also announced a new trade deal with the UK that will reopen British markets for American companies. All that Britain demands in return is that we keep these.
Why does Meghan Markle make her own pretzel bags?
They don't know why.
That's interesting. She takes it from one bag and puts it in another bag.
It's another bag.
And that confuses.
But here's the real gut punch. Edwards said the worst part wasn't even the seating, the heat, or the portions. It was Harry himself. He said Harry turned what should have been a day of joy into what looked like a personal vendetta. Instead of smiling at cameras, instead of embracing the moment like every royal before him, Harry glared, avoided eye contact, and even positioned himself to block shots. For photographers, it was a nightmare. Edwards said it felt like chasing shadows, like Harry was actively trying to make sure no one could capture history. Now remember, this is the same man who had effortlessly captured iconic shots of Charles and Diana, William and Kate, the moments that went down in history books. But this, Edwards admitted it was the first royal wedding where not one single respectable photo came out. And to him, that wasn't just bad luck, that was intentional. This wasn't duty, it was defiance. Instead of the day symbolizing joy, love, and unity, Harry turned it into a battleground, punishing the very press he blamed for Meghan's rough ride in the media. Edwards couldn't help but compare it. When William and Kate welcomed their babies, they stepped outside, smiling, proudly showing the world their children. Charles and Diana had done the same decades before. It was about duty, about letting the people feel included in the royal story. But Harry and Meghan, they ripped that tradition apart. There was no sharing, no joy, no sense of duty. It was like they were saying, we don't owe the public a thing. And that's when it all clicked for Edwards. Instead of rising above criticism, Harry used the wedding to lash out. Every moment turned into a subtle jab at the cameras. Every chance for a timeless shot thrown away. For Edwards, the message was clear. This wasn't love. This wasn't unity. This was war with the press. And for a man who had dedicated his entire life to capturing the monarchy with dignity, it was heartbreaking. He said it felt like watching duty itself get replaced by bitterness, like seeing history turned into hostility. And let's not even get started on the ceremony itself. Edwards said it screamed Hollywood at every turn. The sermon, the performances, the dramatic delivery, it wasn't about honoring the crown. It was about standing out, making headlines, and showing the world that Harry and Meghan weren't like the rest of the royals. Instead of a sacred union, Edwards said it felt like a rebrand of two people who wanted to tell the world, we're not traditional, we're a global brand now. Edwards didn't just stop at calling the wedding a rebrand. Oh no, darling, he went further. He said he already knew how the reaction inside the palace walls would be. The Queen, furious. Prince Charles, seething. William, beyond disappointed, because what should have been a unifying family moment turned into a dividing line. This wasn't about strengthening bonds, Edwards explained. It was about setting Harry and Meghan apart. He said it himself. This wedding wasn't meant to bring the royals closer together, it was meant to mark a separation. Yes, those little privacy sketches and sarcastic moments floating around only hammered home what Edwards was hinting at. The whole vibe was Meghan and Harry stepping onto the world stage as individuals, not as part of the crown. He even remembered one gut-wrenching detail. He once showed a royal family member the very first press photo of Archie on his own phone because even close relatives hadn't been given access. Imagine that. Not about privacy, about shutting doors. When Archie was born, Edwards admitted the disappointment hit even harder. In the past, new royal babies were proudly introduced. Charles and Diana showed William. William and Kate showed George, Charlotte, and Louis. It was part of the royal duty, a joyous ritual uniting the nation. But with Harry and Meghan, nothing. No iconic first glimpse, no moment of unity, just secrecy. Edwards called it another disaster. One more snub, one more fracture. The wedding had opened the cracks and every refusal after widened them. To the public, it looked like independence. To the royals, betrayal. And just when things couldn't seem more strained, the encore arrived, the Oprah interview. Edwards described it as the final explosion. Instead of healing wounds, Harry and Meghan sat down for a primetime spectacle that blew everything wide open. Allegations of racism, cruelty, and mistreatment went global. Millions tuned in. The monarchy had no chance to respond, and Edwards, he saw right through it. He called it what it looked like, a performance, a show designed for maximum impact, not reconciliation. The timing, he insisted, wasn't random. Their popularity was slipping, sympathy was fading, and suddenly, boom, the interview reignited headlines worldwide. Edwards said it wasn't about truth. It was about staying relevant, keeping their names dominating the cycle. And the cost? Families torn apart, trust shattered, royal dignity traded for television drama. He looked back at the wedding and called it the start of the pattern. Guests baking in the heat, loyal royals shoved aside, celebrities parading front and center, and the press deliberately punished. To the world, it was a fairy tale. Behind the scenes, it was a stage production. Arthur Edwards said it plainly. What should have been a royal love story became the opening act of a spectacle. A spectacle built not on duty, but on drama. For him, that wedding wasn't a joining of two families. It was the day the monarchy was used as a backdrop for a global brand launch.